What if I told you that hitting $1 million invested doesn't just mean you have more money, it means you've literally entered a different economic reality with rules most people will never experience. I'm talking about the moment when money stops being something you work for and becomes something that works harder than you ever could. Welcome to Finance Flash, where we break down the financial truths nobody else is talking about. And today, we're revealing exactly what happens when you cross the most important wealth threshold of your life. Here's what most people get wrong about wealth building. They think it's linear. They assume $500,000 is halfway to $1 million in terms of financial freedom. But that's completely false. Wealth building isn't a straight line, it's exponential. And there are specific thresholds where the entire game changes. $1 million invested, not earned, not net worth, but actually invested and working for you represents the single most important financial milestone for the middle class. And after studying wealth patterns for years and analyzing the investment journeys of hundreds of successful investors, I'm going to show you exactly why this number changes everything, backed by hard math and real numbers. The income generation breakthrough. Let's start with the numbers that matter. When you have $10,000 invested earning a conservative 7% annual return, you're generating roughly $700 per year in passive income. That's nice for a weekend trip, but it's not changing your life. Scale up to $50,000 invested, and you're looking at about $3,500 annually. Better, but you're still 100% dependent on your job to survive. But here's where the math becomes absolutely unfair in your favor. $1 million at that same 7% return generates $70,000 per year in passive income without you lifting a finger. Let that sink in. $70,000. That's more than the median American household income, which sits around $67,000, according to recent census data. Your investments aren't just supplementing your lifestyle anymore, they're potentially funding your entire lifestyle. This is the critical point where capital starts outperforming labor for most people. The compound acceleration effect, but here's what really separates this threshold from everything before it: the acceleration effect. If your $1 million portfolio grows by just 8% in a single year, you've made $80,000. That's more than many people contribute to their retirement accounts over 5 to 10 years of disciplined saving. This means your second million typically comes 3 to 5x faster than your first million. Your first million might take 15 to 20 years of grinding, saving, and investing. But once you have that foundation, the combination of continued contributions plus compound growth on a larger base can cut that timeline to just 3 to 5 years. The math literally works in your favor at scale, from saver to capital owner, but the numbers only tell half the story. What's really happening is a complete psychological transformation. You stop being a saver and become a capital owner. These might sound similar, but they're fundamentally different realities. When you're a saver, every dollar feels precious. You're focused on accumulation and growth. Your strategy is offense, earn more, save more, market drops feel devastating. You're building towards something. When you're a capital owner, you shift to preservation and optimization. Your strategy becomes defense, protect. What you have market drops become buying opportunities. You're no longer trying to get rich, you're trying to stay rich. This isn't just philosophy, it's a practical shift that affects every financial decision you make. The volatility paradox. Here's where things get interesting. When you have $20,000 invested, a 10% market correction costs you $2,000. It stings, but it's recoverable. When you have $1 million invested, that same 10% drop costs you $100,000. Suddenly, market volatility isn't just numbers on a screen, it represents years of living expenses. But here's the paradox. Once you cross this threshold, market downturns stop feeling like disasters and start feeling like opportunities. Why? Because you have the financial cushion to weather the storm and the capital to buy assets at discounted prices. This is exactly how the wealthy separate themselves. They use crashes to get richer while everyone else panics. Working from strength, not desperation, this is where life really changes. Once your investments can theoretically cover your living expenses, Every career decision becomes a choice rather than a necessity. You gain what I call view money, not necessarily to quit your job, but to work on your own terms. Here's what this looks like in practice. You can walk away from toxic work environments without fear. You negotiate harder for compensation because you're not desperate. You can take calculated risks like career changes or entrepreneurship because you have a safety net. You can accept lower-paying jobs that offer better growth potential. Or personal fulfillment, you can turn down projects that don't align with your values. And here's the kicker, this confidence often leads to better financial outcomes. People who aren't desperate make better decisions. They negotiate from positions of strength. They pursue opportunities that actually align with their skills rather than just taking whatever pays the bills. The time value shift, your relationship with time completely inverts. When you're building toward $1 million, every hour not spent earning feels wasteful. You're constantly calculating opportunity costs. But once your capital is generating substantial income, you realize your time has become more valuable than your immediate earning potential. This is when people start making irrational choices from the outside, turning down higher-paying jobs, taking extended sabbaticals, pursuing passion projects that don't generate revenue. But these aren't irrational. They're optimizing for life satisfaction instead of maximum earnings, which is exactly what financial freedom should enable. Access to elite opportunities? Here's something most people don't realize. The financial system has secret levels that only unlock at certain capital thresholds. When you have $1 million invested, you suddenly gain access to investment opportunities that were completely impossible before. Private equity funds, often requiring $50,000, $100,000 minimum investments per position, real estate syndications, pooled investments in commercial properties with institutional-level returns, venture capital opportunities, early-stage startup investments with asymmetric upside, private REITs and debt funds, higher yield opportunities not available to retail investors when you only had $50,000 total invested. A $50,000 minimum investment was your entire portfolio. But with $1 million, you can allocate 5 to 10% to these opportunities without putting all your eggs in one basket. These aren't just exotic investments for billionaires, they're opportunities that become accessible at the $1 million mark and can dramatically accelerate wealth building. The leverage advantage. Banks and financial institutions also treat you completely differently. With $1 million in liquid investments, you suddenly qualify for investment property loans with better terms, business lines of credit based on your asset base, portfolio margin lending at low rates, 2 to 4%, to invest without selling positions, cash out refinancing opportunities, bridge loans for time-sensitive acquisitions. This access to cheap capital is how the wealthy really multiply their money. They don't just save, they use existing capital to acquire more capital-producing assets. It's like having a cheat code that unlocks doors most people don't even know exist, the anxiety that increases. But let's talk about what catches most new millionaires completely off guard. The psychological pressure actually increases in unexpected ways. Your daily portfolio fluctuations start exceeding most people's monthly salaries. You could lose more money in a single bad week than many people make in an entire year. I've watched people hit their first million and become obsessed with checking their accounts multiple times daily, watching their net worth swing by $20,000, $50,000, based on market movements completely beyond their control. This creates a new type of financial anxiety you simply can't understand until you experience it. This is why many millionaires shift toward more conservative strategies. Once they cross this threshold, they start prioritizing capital preservation over aggressive growth. The risk tolerance that got them to $1 million often isn't the same risk tolerance that helps them keep it. The social isolation effect. Here's another thing nobody warns you about. Money conversations become complicated. You can't complain about market volatility when your daily swings exceed most people's monthly salaries. You can't discuss the stress of managing wealth when most people are struggling to save anything. Your real financial concerns start sounding like luxury problems, creating a weird form of social isolation where the financial topics that dominate most conversations become irrelevant to your situation. Tax strategy becomes critical. Once you cross $1 million, tax optimization shifts from afterthought to core strategy. When your investments are generating $70,000 plus annually, the difference between paying 15% versus 25% in taxes is $7,000 per year, $70,000 over a decade. This is when sophisticated strategies become worth the complexity. Tax loss harvesting to offset capital gains, asset location optimization, putting the right assets in the right accounts, Roth conversion strategies during low-income years, qualified dividend income optimization, long-term capital gains planning. The wealthy also gain access to better financial infrastructure, private banking relationships, dedicated financial advisors with fiduciary duty, sophisticated tax planning services, estate planning attorneys. These services aren't better because they're expensive, they're better because they're designed for complex financial situations where the dollar amounts make specialized expertise worthwhile. Beyond personal wealth, perhaps the most profound shift is how you start thinking about legacy. When you're building your first $100,000, you're focused on your own financial security. When you have $1 million invested and it's growing faster than you can spend it, you start thinking about what happens to this wealth beyond your lifetime. Your investments become less about funding your own lifestyle and more about stewarding capital that could impact multiple lives over extended periods. This isn't just about leaving money to kids or charities, it's understanding that you've created something that can outlive you and continue generating value for decades or generations. This shift affects everything from daily habits to estate planning, from the risks you take to the values you want to pass down. So there you have it, the complete picture of why $1 million invested represents the most important financial threshold most people will ever cross. Let's recap the key transformations. 1. Mathematical reality. Your money starts working harder than most people do at their jobs, generating income that can cover your entire lifestyle too. Psychological shift. You transform from saver to capital owner, changing how you think about risk, time, and opportunity. 3. Career freedom. Every professional decision becomes a choice rather than a necessity, giving you true negotiating power. 4. Elite access, investment opportunities, and financial infrastructure that were impossible before suddenly become available. 5. Acceleration effect. Your second million comes 3 to 5x faster than your first because compound growth works on a larger base. The $1 million threshold isn't just about reaching a number, it's about crossing into a completely different financial reality where the rules fundamentally change. So here's my challenge to you. If you're not at $1 million yet, treat this as your roadmap. Understand what's waiting for you on the other side and let that fuel your discipline today. And if you're already there, recognize the responsibility that comes with capital ownership and use these advantages to accelerate even further. Drop a comment below. Where are you on your journey to $1 million invested? What's your biggest obstacle right now? And if this video added value, smash that subscribe button because at Finance Flash, we're cutting through the noise and bringing you the financial truth nobody else will say. I'll see you in the next one.